Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Hafiza Hadi Irfan here, lecturer of English from University of Education, Lahore. Today I'm going to teach you a topic from the course title Morphology and Syntax Basics. The topic of our discussion today is the surface and deep structure. We will discuss these two types of structures, surface and deep, in today's lecture. Before going towards our major topic, that is surface and deep structure, let's recapitulate what syntax is. Because syntax is the study of the sentence structure, and we are going to discuss the two types of sentence structures, right? So, syntax is the part of linguistics that studies the structure and formation of sentences. It explains how words and phrases are arranged to form correct sentences. Basically, it's a tool that is used in writing proper grammatical sentences. So, to create grammatically correct and acceptable English sentences, we will have to follow the English rules for syntax. Native speakers of a language learn correct syntax even without realizing it. It is a part of grammar. Syntax is a part of grammar that represents a speaker's knowledge of the structures and formation. In today's lecture, I'll tell you what syntactic structure is and the rules that determine syntactic structure, focusing on the two types of syntactic structures called surface and deep structure. Let's see what is a syntactic structure. A syntactic structure is a set of words or phrases in a language which share a significant number of common characteristics. Syntactic structures commonly include these three things. The first one is the parts of speech, the second one, phrase structure grammars, and the third one is a sentence. And you know that the parts of speech includes noun, verb, adverb, adjective, pronoun, determiner, preposition, and auxiliary, etc. And phrase structure grammars include noun phrase, adjective phrase, verb phrase, adverb phrase, and preposition phrase. And sentence as the core of the structure. So all of these three parts make syntactic structure. Now, what is grammaticality? Grammaticality refers to the sequence of words that conform to the rules of syntax and make them grammatical, and those that violate the syntactic rules are declared as ungrammatical, or you may say ill-formed sentences. Here the two type of examples are given. The first one is grammatical, or you may say well-formed, or the other one is ungrammatical or ill-formed sentences. In the example first, the cat is on the mat, or the mat is on the cat. Both of these sentences are grammatical because they are well-formed. On the contrary, in the second example, the cat on is the mat, it is ungrammatical because it is ill-formed. It is not following the syntactic rules. And then the mat on the is cat. It is also an ungrammatical sentence because it is also ill-formed. It is also not following the syntactic rules. So in the second example, the rules or the syntactic rules are violated, so these are ill-formed sentences. We have learned that what is grammaticality. Now we will see that what grammaticality is not based on. So grammaticality does not depend on a sentence being meaningful. For example, this is a very famous example by a famous linguist in the field of linguistics, a very famous one, Noam Chomsky. He has given this example: colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Now, this sentence, we can't say that there is no grammaticality in this sentence. There is grammaticality in this sentence. It is following the sentence structures. It is following the syntactic rules, but it is not meaningful. Although it is following all of the rules of grammaticality and the rules of syntactic structures, the rules of the syntactic rules, but it is not meaningful. So grammaticality is not based on a sentence being meaningful. The other one is that grammaticality does not depend on truth even. For example, I look like a fairy. Now, a fairy does not exist in reality, but it is a mythical creature. So, saying this by a person that I look like a fairy, it's not a truth. But this sentence is grammatical, well formed, because it is following grammaticality and it is following the syntactic rules. So there is grammaticality in this sentence, and grammaticality does not depend on truth. Now we are moving towards our major topic. Let's see Chomsky and his syntactic theory. As I have mentioned it in the previous slide, Chomsky is one of the most popular linguists in modern linguistic studies. His transformational generative grammar theory, or TG, this theory, we have discussed this theory in the previous lecture as well. This theory has a revolutionary influence in this field since he published his first book, Syntactic Structures, in 1957. In this theory, Chomsky points out that there are two levels of syntactic structure in every sentence. Every sentence has two levels of structure. The first one is deep and the second one is surface. So the first is called deep structure, you may call it D structure, which is formed by the XP rule. Deep structure plays an important role in the interpretation of a sentence. Let a sentence which is in question, how you interpret it. What is the meaning of that sentence in the deeper level? What meaning that sentence is conveying is the deep structure of that sentence. And the second level of syntactic structure is called surface structure, or you may say S structure. It is formed by applying appropriate transformations for the deep structure of sentence that is in question. The following figure may explain clearly the relationship between them, the relationship between surface structure and deep structure. Here, first of all, XP rule, it will be applied. on deep structure, and after transformation we will see the surface structure. And the example of these two types of syntactic structures are given just before this diagram. The example of deep structure is the dog bit the man, then transformation, and then just before the surface structure, an example is given, the man was bitten by the dog. Now, if a person utters before us the sentence, the surface structure sentence, the man was bitten by the dog, then obviously we are going to get the idea that the dog bit the man, of course, because the surface structure, the sentence that is given as an example for the surface structure, the man was bitten by the dog, is clearly stating that the dog bit the man. So the surface structure itself is subject to phonological and morphemic rules. The XP rule generate an underlying deep structure which is transformed by transformational rules to produce a final surface structure. The surface structure itself is subject to phonological and morphemic rules, and deep structures are generated by phrase structure rules, and surface structures are derived from deep structures by a series of transformations. And here in this example, the transformation called passive is applied. From the man was bitten by the dog, and the dog bit the man. According to the Oxford Dictionary of English Grammar, deep and surface structure are often used as terms in a simple binary opposition, with the deep structure representing meaning and the surface structure being the actual sentence we see. Or you may say that the actual sentence we hear is actually the surface structure of that sentence, and the meaning that is given in that sentence is the deep structure of that sentence, or the meaning that can be interpreted by that surface structure sentence is the deep structure, which is actually representing the meaning, the actual meaning of that particular sentence. The terms deep structure and surface structure were popularized in 1960s and 70s by American linguist Noam Chomsky, who eventually discarded the concepts in his minimalist program in 1990s. A basic claim of the 1965 version of generative grammar theory, this theory we have discussed in the previous lecture as well. The basic claim of this theory was that in addition to the surface form of sentences, or you may say the form we hear, there is another level of syntactic structure which is called deep structure, and which expresses the underlying syntactic regularities of sentences, or what is the underlying or the deeper meaning of that sentence is. For instance, a passive sentence like 1a, the bear was chased by the lion, was claimed to have a deep structure in which the noun phrases are in the order of the corresponding active, as in 1b, the lion chased the bear. So, the meaning in both of these sentences is the same. And if a sentence is uttered before us, the bear was chased by the lion, automatically we are going to get the idea that the lion chased the bear. This is the underlying meaning of that sentence. Whereas at the surface level, the sentence is the bear was chased by the lion. But at the deeper level, the meaning of the sentence is the lion chased the bear. In transformational and generative grammar, deep structure, which is also known as deep grammar or D structure, is the underlying syntactic structure, or you may say a level of a sentence. In contrast to surface structure, which is the outward form of a sentence we hear or we see, deep structure is an abstract representation. I'm repeating, an abstract representation that identifies the ways in which a sentence can be analyzed and interpreted. For example, we have seen previously two examples. For example, the bear was chased by the lion. In this example, as the deep structure is an abstract representation, so the abstract representation of that sentence was the lion chased the bear. So that's why we are saying that deep structure is an abstract representation of that particular sentence, and it identifies the ways in which a sentence can be analyzed and interpreted because it is full of deeper meaning. Transformational grammar assigns a deep structure and a surface structure to show the relationship of such sentences. Thus, in the first example, the sentence, I know a man who flies aeroplanes, can be considered the surface form of a deep structure approximately like, I know a man, the man flies aeroplanes. The notion of deep structure can be especially helpful in explaining ambiguous utterances. For example, flying aeroplanes can be dangerous may have a deep structure or meaning like aeroplanes can be dangerous when they fly, or it can be to fly aeroplanes can be dangerous. As we have read that surface structures are derived from deep structures by a series of transformations. Let's see this example. The example of the surface structure is the cat was bitten by the dog. At the deeper level, the meaning of this surface structure sentence is the dog bit the cat, which is the deep structure of the sentence that is given above. The cat was bitten by the dog. Let's see the figure given below. The surface structure actually is the phonological aspect of that sentence. For example, the sentence that we hear or the sentence that we uttered. Then transformation and then deep structure. And the deep structure is concerned with the semantic meaning of that sentence. That's why we have learned in the previous slides that deep structure helps us to interpret the meaning of that sentence, of this sentence of the surface structure. So the surface structure is concerned with the phonological aspect of the sentence, whereas the deep structure is concerned with the semantic meaning of that particular sentence. The deep structure is the basic structure of sentences. We are not saying the apparent structure of sentences, we are saying the basic structure of sentences. It is specified by the phrase structure rules. And phrase structure rules create initial syntactic trees. And we can use tree diagrams to analyze the organization and relationship of different components of a sentence. As these structures are generated by phrase structure rules and surface structures are derived from deep structures by a series of transformations. As phrase structure rules create initial syntactic trees, let's see the phrase structure rules. After joining a determiner and noun, we can make a noun phrase. And after joining a verb and a noun phrase, we can make a verb phrase, VP. And after joining a noun phrase, that is NP, and a verb phrase, that is VP, we can make a sentence. So, in order to make a sentence, we need a noun phrase and a verb phrase, NP and VP. And in order to get a VP, that is a verb phrase, we need a verb and a noun phrase, NP. And in order to get or to make NP, that is noun phrase, we need a determiner and a noun. So these are the phrase structure rules. This transformational grammar theory gives phrase structure rules. Phrase structure rules are a type of rewrite rules that you use to describe a given language syntax and are closely associated with the early stages of transformational grammar proposed by Noam Chomsky in 1957. They are used to break down a natural language sentence into its constituent parts, also known as syntactic categories, including both lexical categories and phrasal categories. Lexical categories include parts of speech. Let's see which are the lexical categories and which are the phrasal categories. The lexical categories are denoted with a left brace here at left side. The determiner, adjective, adverb, noun, verb, pronoun, preposition, and auxiliary verb. These are the lexical categories. And the phrasal categories are prepositional phrase, adverb phrase, adjective phrase, noun phrase, and verb phrase. Those that are denoted by the right brace in red color. Now what are the syntactic labels? These are the syntactic labels. A sentence is denoted with as, a determiner is denoted with det, an adjective is denoted with adj, an adverb is denoted with adv, a noun is denoted with an, a verb with v, a pronoun with pro or pro, a preposition with p, an auxiliary verb with aux or aux, you can say. Prepositional phrase or preposition phrase is with PP, adverb phrase is with ADVP, adjective phrase is with ADJP, noun phrase with NP, and verb phrase is denoted with VP. So these S, DET, ADV, PRO, P, PP, NP, VP, these are the syntactic labels. The phrase structure rules are: a sentence is made by joining a noun phrase and a verb phrase. A noun phrase is made by joining a determiner plus a noun. Or it can be a determiner, adjective, and noun. The verb phrase is made by joining a verb and a noun phrase and can be a prepositional as well. Prepositional phrase is made by joining a preposition and a noun phrase. So these are the phrase structure rules, and the application of these rules will be told next in the next slide. So Here we will apply the phrase structure rules. Stage 1, I am going to take a very short sentence. And stage 1, the boy writes. The is the determiner, boy is a noun. A determiner and noun are joining and making a noun phrase. Writes is a verb, and a verb and a noun phrase, by joining they are making a verb phrase, and noun phrase and a verb phrase, they are making a sentence. In stage 2, the sentence is the clever boy writes. It is a longer sentence than the previous one. The determiner, clever adjective, and boy noun. So determiner, adjective, and noun, by joining together, they are making noun phrase. Writes is a verb, and by joining a noun phrase and a verb phrase, a noun phrase and a verb, they are making a verb phrase, and a noun phrase and a verb phrase, by joining they are making a sentence. As I have already told you that a noun phrase and a verb phrase will make a sentence, and a determiner, adjective, and noun will make a noun phrase, and a verb and a noun phrase will make a verb phrase. Okay. Stage 3. A beautiful girl sings a beautiful song. So, a determiner, beautiful adjective, girl noun. So, determiner, adjective, and noun, by joining together, they are making noun phrase. Sings is a verb. A determiner, beautiful adjective, song, noun. Again, a beautiful song, determiner, adjective, and noun. By joining together, they are making a noun phrase. And a verb and a noun phrase, by joining together, they are making a verb phrase. And a verb phrase and a noun phrase, by joining together, they are making a sentence. The stage 4. Here is the longer sentence than the previous 3 sentences. The man writes a long letter in the class. The determiner, man, noun, determiner, and noun, by joining together, they are making a noun phrase. Writes a verb, a determiner, long adjective, letter, noun. Determiner, adjective, and noun, by joining together, they are making a noun phrase. And writes, verb, by joining with a noun phrase, they are making a verb phrase. In the class, in preposition, the determiner, class, noun. Determiner and noun, by joining together, they are making noun phrase. In preposition, now preposition and the noun phrase, by joining together, they are making prepositional phrase. And prepositional phrase and noun phrase, by joining together, they are making a sentence. Now, keeping in view the phrase structure rules, we will syntactically analyze this example of deep structure, that is, John loves Mary. In this example, or in this sentence, John, as it's the subject, is a noun phrase, and the predicate, that is a verb phrase, where loves is a verb, and Mary is a noun phrase, and by joining they are making a verb phrase, and a verb phrase and a noun phrase. After joining, they are making a sentence. Let's look at the transformational rules. A transformational rule is a syntactic rule that is applied to an underlying phrase structure tree of a sentence. It derives a new structure by moving or inserting elements. we can move or we can insert any element in a particular sentence. It is a way to capture the relationship between a declaration and a question. And in the next slide, we will see the examples with the help of the tree diagrams. Here in this example, we will see the passive transformation, how the passive transformation is applied. So the sentence is John loves Mary, and you can see it in the tree diagram as well, the sentence with the help of a tree diagram, where John is a noun phrase, loves verb, and Mary noun phrase. Verb and a noun phrase are making verb phrase, and John as NP or a noun phrase. After combining a noun phrase and a verb phrase, we are getting a sentence. The first, for the passive transformation, to apply the passive transformation, at first what we would do is to delete its subject. You can see in the figure next. After deleting the subject, that is John, what is left is loves Mary, and you can see it in the figure below. Now, after removing or deleting the subject, what we are going to do is that we will move the object to subject position, as our subject was John and we had deleted it. Now we are going to move our object to the subject of the position, that is at the beginning. So Mary was our object and we are moving it at the place of a subject where the word John was. So Mary, now after moving it, now we have gotten the sentence Mary loves by John. Okay, so Mary as NP, loves verb by preposition, and John by John, it is prepositional phrase, and a verb phrase and a prepositional phrase are making a verb phrase, and a verb phrase and a noun phrase are making a sentence. Let's see the other step. Now the next step is to insert the passive auxiliary, that is was. Okay, so now the sentence would be Mary was loved by John. So Mary is a noun phrase again, and was auxiliary, we have inserted the auxiliary. Loved, of course, verb, and auxiliary and a verb, that is we are going to consider is a verb, by a preposition John as a noun phrase, and after their joining we are getting a prepositional phrase, as we have done in the previous figure directly. And a verb and a prepositional phrase, they are making a verb phrase, and a verb phrase and a noun phrase that is Mary, that is left, they are making a sentence. So now we have gotten the sentence is Mary was loved by John. So here the transformation on the sentence John loves Mary is applied, and the sentence John loves Mary is changed into the sentence, into a passive sentence, that is Mary was loved by John. So these were the steps of transformation. As the surface structure is the actual form of a sentence, or the sentence we see or we hear, it is a form of a sentence that is resulted from modification or transformation. Surface structure is a form of language that is based on deep structure. Let's see an example with reference to the same deep structure and different surface structures. I'm repeating, the same deep structure and the different surface structures, 3 different surface structures. For example, you push the chair, active sentence. Then the chair is pushed by you, a passive sentence. And then push the chair, imperative sentence. So these 3 sentences have the same abstract representation or have the same deep structure, which is you as a person push the chair. Okay, so some structurally ambiguous sentences, 2 or more deep structures are possible for one surface structure. Let's see the example number 2. With reference to the same surface structure and different deep structures. Again, I'm repeating, the surface structure is the same with different deep structures. For example, John saw the man with a telescope. Now, who has the telescope? What does it mean? Who has the telescope, John or the man? So, here we find same surface structure and different deep structures. Let's see the syntactic analysis of this particular sentence. John saw the man with a telescope. Now, here we find the 2 meanings of this sentence. The first one is that John has the telescope, or the other meaning is the man has the telescope. So here we see the same surface structure, that is John saw the man with the telescope, but we find the different deep structures. These 2 different deep structures that are John has the telescope and the man has the telescope. This particular sentence given below in the figure can be interpreted in the both ways, whether John has the telescope or the man has the telescope. Let's discuss the ambiguity at these 2 levels of sentences. Ambiguity can be at the lexical level or it can be at the structural level. If we find a word that is ambiguous and it is creating an ambiguity, it would be the lexical ambiguity. And if we find a phrase or a sentence, or we find the ambiguity at the phrasal or sentential level, then it would be structural ambiguity. So here we will discuss the 2 types of ambiguity or ambiguity at 2 levels, at lexical level and at structural level. Let's first discuss the lexical ambiguity. So, an ambiguous sentence is a sentence that has 2 meanings, and because of having 2 meanings, it is actually creating ambiguity in a sentence. Some sentences are ambiguous because they contain a word that is ambiguous, and that is causing ambiguity. Such cases are called lexical ambiguities. The lexicon is just the set of words in a language, you know that. Let's see the example. Example 1. John is sitting near the bank. Now meaning 1 is the word bank, a financial institution, while the meaning 2 of the word bank is the slope at the side of a river. Now the sentence is that is written or that is heard, whatever it is, John is sitting near the bank. Now the word bank, which is a lexicon, is creating ambiguity that whether John is sitting near the financial institution or he is sitting at the side of a river. So this word bank is creating ambiguity. This lexicon bank is creating ambiguity, hence it is called lexical ambiguity in a particular sentence. Now, what is structural ambiguity? Some sentences can be ambiguous without containing any ambiguous word, the way the case in the previous example. These cases can be explained when it is observed that the sentences in question or that the sentence that is in question can be given two distinct syntactic trees, which are leading towards what is called a structural ambiguity, which refers to the ambiguity that is being created at the structural level, or in the structure ambiguity that is created in the structure of a particular sentence. For example, Mary will hit the student with the book. In this sentence, the meaning one can be Mary will hit the student and she will do so with the book, which means the hitting is actually done with the book. But meaning two of this sentence can be Mary will hit the student who is holding the book, which means that the student is actually holding the book. Now, the sentence is the same, but it is giving two different meanings. So just because of the structure of this sentence, the structure of this sentence is actually creating ambiguity because the meaning is not clear whether Mary will hit the student and she will do so with the book, or Mary will hit the student who is actually holding the book. So the meaning, the structure of this sentence is ambiguous, hence it is called structural ambiguity. Lexical versus structural ambiguities. Let's see both of the examples again. In the example 1, John is sitting near the bank. In this example, the word bank is referring towards two meanings of a particular word bank. One word is referring towards two meanings. The first one is financial institution and the other one is the bank that is slope at the side of a river. So it has the example 1 has two meanings which appear to be reducible to the two meanings of the word bank. So here the ambiguity is created because of a word bank, because of a lexicon bank. So it was lexical ambiguity. Let's see the example number 2. Mary will hit the student with the book. Means that Mary will hit the student and she will do so with the book. Means the hitting is done with the book. And the other meaning is Mary will hit the student who is actually holding the book. Means the student is holding the book. None of the words in example 2 is ambiguous. So why is the sentence ambiguous? The sentence is ambiguous because it can be given two distinct syntactic trees. In the example number 2, the ambiguity is created because of the sentence, at the sentence level, because of the sentence, not because of a word. So this was the lexical and structural ambiguities, and we have discussed in this lecture the suffix and date structure and their ambiguities as well. Thank you so much for listening.